pretty big developments. Malta announced that it's going to be recognizing the state of Palestine next month. They actually just announced this earlier today. Here's an article. Malta's Prime Minister Robert Abella says his country will officially recognize the state of Palestine next month, ending more than 4 decades of hesitation. Speaking at a political event on Sunday, Abella condemned the deepening catastrophe in Gaza, where he said over 50,000 people have been killed. We cannot close our eyes to this humanitarian tragedy that is getting worse every day. Abel said Malta would formalize its position following a June 20th conference, the UN conference on the two-state solution, describing this as a moral responsibility amid the worsening violence. Obviously, this got huge condemnation from Zionists and pro-Israel advocates. How it's a huge development, partly because obviously Malta is a European country, and the more countries, the more the EU begins to recognize Palestine, the more it's going to have huge ramifications, especially if a G7 member recognizes Palestine, which France said they're also considering to be doing at the UN conference next month. Here is the UN conference right here. Alrighty, I think you guys should be able to see that now. Diplomats prepare ground for June conference on two-state solution for Israel and Palestine. The preparatory conference brought together by UN member states to align expectations and finalize arrangements for 8 thematic roundtables that will help shape the conference's outcomes. This conflict cannot be resolved through permanent war nor through endless occupation or annexation. It will only end when Israelis and Palestinians can live side by side in their own sovereign, independent states in peace, security, and dignity. The co-chairs are France and Saudi Arabia at the conference, emphasize that the need for the June conference to go beyond reaffirming principles and achieve concrete results on the ground. We must urgently move forward to deeds. We must move from ending the war in Gaza to ending the conflict itself. Faced with the facts on the ground, the prospects of a Palestinian state must be maintained. Irreversible steps and concrete measures for the implementation thereof are necessary. Head of the Saudi Arabian negotiating team said that this was a historic moment, that the preparatory meeting must chart a course for action, not reflection. The outcome document decide to convene the conference in its resolution ES 1024. The conference will produce an action-oriented outcome document entitled Peaceful Settlement of the Question of Palestine and Implementation of the Two-State Solution. So, sounds all fine and dandy. However, how likely, what's going to actually happen after the conference, and how likely is it that Palestine will be recognized as a state, especially when it comes to the United States, just given the Trump administration's stance on the whole situation? I'll say this. We do know that there's actually a bill. I'm going to pull it up. I think it's called the No Palestine Bill. No Palestine Bill, or maybe something related to that. Let's see. No Official Palestine Entry Act. It's called the NOPE Act. That's what it's abbreviated for. This was already introduced in 2024. Here, I'm going to share this tab instead now. You should be able to see it. No Official Palestine Entry Act of 2024. The bill limits funds to the United Nations or other organizations that provide any status, rights, or privileges beyond observer status to the Palestinian Liberation Organization and for other purposes, be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America. If Palestine is recognized as having the same status or any status above what it currently is at the United Nations, then the United States will limit funding to the United Nations. Nothing in this act shall be construed to apply to Taiwan, which is a pretty interesting addition to the bill. Why is Taiwan so important? Obviously, because they produce a ton of semiconductors. We have this tension with China, but anyways, that's aside from the point. Even if this the June 20th conference, I think it's June 20th is the final date of it. It's like a 4-day conference or something. Even when it happens, how's the U.S. going to respond? Likely Israel is going to condemn the entire conference, and it's going to actually lead to more settlements being built. We know that's going to happen. We know that's how Israel is going to respond. We know Ben Gvir and Smotrich are going to go balls to the walls on continuing settlement expansion. The United States, especially with the fact that it's a Republican administration, Republican House, Republican Senate, most likely it's going to lead to responsive action from the United States, and it's not going to be in the benefit of Palestine. That's for sure. I feel like just given the fact that we have so many APAC bought out politicians, Lindsey Graham, Tom Cotton, I can just imagine them putting forward something even harsher if this conference ends up making actual steps in that direction. The more the United States allows Israel to go rogue, and the more the United States unconditionally supports Israel, the more Israel's isolating itself diplomatically on the international stage. And it might help Israel in the short term. It might help Israel's goals in the short term when it comes to settlement expansion and annexing more land. But ultimately, Israel can't rely on the United States fully. It can rely on the United States a lot, especially when it comes to military equipment and its arsenal, but it can't rely on it fully, especially when the EU is Israel's largest trading partner. So logically, it just makes sense that the more Israel continues to go rogue, eventually the EU is going to reach a tipping point, and I think it's going to happen sooner rather than later. Who's just, who we'll see what happens, but we're already seeing EU politicians starting to speak out about what's going on a lot more. And we already know that some countries are even considering already sanctioning Israel now, even if the United States decided never to sanction Israel, which, just given the current political landscape in the United States, I think that's like a pipe dream. Even if that wasn't the case, the EU being Israel's largest trading partner, the EU has a lot of influence on Israel if they wanted to. They could easily hurt Israel economically to the point where they're going to have to oblige to the EU, where Israel would have to oblige, but that's only if the EU actually decided to put its foot down. And right now, that's not the case. But if Israel continues to go rogue, it soon will be. So I think that right now, when it comes to Palestine and the question of Palestine and how things are going to progress, especially in the United States with the current Trump administration, the best bet is the EU is going to be the one that's going to really end up spearheading the movement. Who knows what's going to happen 4 years from now under a Democratic administration, if the problem is going to be resolved by then. It's been going on for 8 decades now. That's the news for today, guys. Let me know what you guys think and shoot me a subscribe button. Click the subscribe button below. This is my second episode of doing this. I think I'm becoming a little bit more natural. So hopefully as time goes, I'll be better. You won't hear me saying ums and ands as much either. All right, guys, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.